to you, Paul Chavez.
Yes, yes. Good morning, Denver. Good morning, Colorado. Hashtag Boulder. It is just, I thought I was waking up from a bad dream, but it's happening again. And here in Colorado, and I woke up this morning, every channel I turned to, it's about the tragic violence that happened in Boulder, Colorado, starting at 2:30 p.m. yesterday, and it won't stop for a while as far as the healing process. I think they took out the last body from the King Soopers in Boulder at about 1:30 this morning. We'll be having a couple of guests on our show this morning that normally you'd be enjoying some music. I mean, we entertain, we educate, but we also inform. And today is one of those days where we're going to inform you. And Henry's going to introduce our first guest right now that's here with us live. Normally he's sitting on this side, now he's over on that side.
And I'd like to introduce one of our astounded guests, Mr. Charlie Pacello. And the reason we have this exclusive show is to bring you Charlie. Charlie Pacello, MA, with his background is trauma and PTSD. Now, we know that the first responders, the mayor, the governor, everybody has to go in front of cameras and give their thoughts and prayers to the family, the police officer who got his life taken. He don't know what he was up against. It's the type of trauma, the type of PTSD that can strike home. All these first responders, everybody who's involved, as well as the people who do the reporting. And we'll have Greg Nieto to let you know what he feels about having to report and keep a straight face about how this is and what it feels like to have this in our own backyard, especially Boulder, Colorado. Charlie, are you with us, brother?
I'm with you, brother.
Charlie,
it is a terrible, terrible tragedy, and it's just heartbreaking to be able to see. You know, when it touches close to home like this, it really it bypasses the rational brain, and it goes right into the emotional limbic system, and so you experience these feelings of paralysis, of fear, of shock, of how could this happen. And it is an emotional disturbance that we have to be able to acknowledge, and just the senselessness of it is incomprehensible, and it's really a tragic day to wake up to today.
And you know, it's ironic for me. I was talking to my son this morning, and he was telling me, you know, with his friends going to see you Boulder, it's a place in Boulder at the King Soopers where everybody hangs out, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, wow, you could have been there, you know, that kind of thing. And I was telling him about how I can't find myself able to go to a theater anymore, and I haven't gone since what happened in Aurora. So I think maybe you could bring some light to this and help me out, you know, because this is definitely hit home, and I'm one of these news buffs. I just like to gravitate to it, and needless to say, I was up to about 1:30 this morning watching every channel, and I couldn't sleep after that. And that's just from the outside looking in. You could just imagine what the moms, the dads, the brothers, the sisters of the victims that are having to wake up this morning knowing that their loved one's not coming home.
And that's one of the hardest things, Paul, is to be able to, how do you process that? How do you work through that knowledge that that person that you loved that was there yesterday left and never came back? And these are things that a lot of the time soldiers often feel whenever they go to war and they're in battle. A lot of times the people they wake up to, they get killed in action, or something happens, and so then you're constantly trying to figure out, you know, could I have done something differently? Could I have stopped this person from going to the store? What if I would have just said something? And then it's a lot of guilt and shame that starts to come up because you feel like you could have done something and you didn't do something, and Now you feel responsible for it on some level, and it is going to take some time to heal this stuff. Right now we're in the stage of shock, Paul.
Yes.
And that's because we don't, when it hits home, when it hits this close to home, it breaks our illusions. It breaks this idea that it can happen here. People don't, evil is someplace else. Doing bad things is someplace else. It's not here in our beautiful city of Denver, Colorado, and Boulder, Colorado, and all these wonderful people that we have here.
Yes.
I mean, and so it shatters that illusion. We feel betrayed by it on some level, and how do we start to pull the pieces back together? I think that the governor has done an outstanding job in trying to, bring calm and understanding and unity for all Coloradans, and expressing his grief and tragedy of the tragedy to everybody.
Right.
So I think our political figures and our leaders are doing a good job so far.
Obviously, Henry felt strong enough to have you on the show today. I think I've listened to it. I've watched it. Your show is on Wednesdays, I believe. Am I close?
No, it's every other Friday.
Every other Friday. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry about that. I know I listened to it because I got the station on all day at work. But give us a background about yourself.
I was in the military. I come from a military family. My dad was fought in Vietnam, and I was in the Air Force. I worked on the GPS NDS program, nuclear detonation detection systems. I've been working in this field for over 9 years, helping people heal from PTSD, depression, trauma, suicidal ideation, dysfunctional relationship patterns, anything that is connected to trauma, because it has been such a my family has been plagued by it for generations, and this is something that I know very well and intimately. I suffered from it.
Right.
And so I come from the experience, I speak from the experience of having gone through it, of having reached rock bottom and to that point of what I thought was no return, and the trauma overwhelming me. I had a serious case of complex PTSD, and I had to make a choice whether or not to continue to live or not. And I chose life. And so this is the process that I coach people through to help them to heal their trauma, and to get to a place where they can fully embrace their life once again, and to be able to to live the life they were meant to live.
Absolutely. It's not an overnight process, but obviously with your experience, I just wanted to share that information with my particular audience. Now, there's a website for those of you people. A lot of it is this anxiety is what can I do? I'm not an officer. I'm not a first responder. I'm not a family member. What can I do to help out? Because sometimes that's a way to release whatever you have inside, because you feel so helpless. And one of the places to go to is ColoradoHealingFund.org. Any money that you donate, if you want to donate time, you just go to the website, and it all goes directly to those victims that were, had this experience yesterday to their families, because there's people who cannot fly in for whatever, the economy. They cannot, there's people who will have their cars still there because of the ongoing investigation that need a rental, this kind of stuff. So that's definitely one of the ways. And I think for you, in inviting people to do certain things that I probably don't know, because you're the expert at this, what else can we do? I mean, what else?
There are little techniques, Paul, that everybody can do that can help them right now in this moment. And they're simple things to help to start to regulate your nervous system, to bring your nervous system in alignment, because our nervous system goes into a state of survival. And in service of survival, it's going to do certain things to, keep you safe, to keep you protected. That's the idea. But we need to engage the parasympathetic nervous system to calm our systems down so that we can think clearly. Because when your fight or flight response system is activated, it shuts down your higher cortical centers in your brain, and so you're in your primitive part of your brain and your emotional part of the brain. So how do we calm ourselves down? Simple grabbing your hand, just like this, grabbing your thumb and breathing and holding. It's like what we did when we were infants. It sends signals to our brain to calm ourselves down and keep us, and we breathe and we hold ourselves in that way. Another technique is just to wrap yourself and put your arm underneath your shoulder here and over, and it's like you're giving yourself a hug. These are giving signals to breathe in, to comfort, to hold, to embrace. So you're starting to regulate yourself and activate the vagus nerve, and so that your nervous system can calm down, so you can start to regulate. Those in breathing into the present moment. Focusing 10 breaths, and you breathe in on a count of 5, and you hold, and then you exhale for a count of 9. And then you do that, and by doing that, you start to activate your parasympathetic nervous system as well. So those are 3 easy techniques that you can do right now, that anybody can do to help them, because we're not good when we're in stress to help other people, to be able to help and we have to heal in community too. So our community has to be able to reach out to one another, but you've got to be able to get yourself in a calm and regulated place, so that you can act from a place of wholeness and love and compassion, rather than fear, trepidation, and concern.
Exclusive here on KUHS, and you've heard about the news everywhere else. What we're trying to do is calm people down, and obviously we'll continue to watch the news, because we want to know. It's in our nature. We want to know what the motive was. Who was this guy? Why didn't they tell us what was going on inside the store? I mean, all these questions, even as you're sleeping, goes on, because we're a want-to-know society.
And Charlie, you talk about intrepidation, and we talk a lot about how these first responders have to go and be brave, and then come back on after the aftermath and visually see all this type of carnage that has happened, and be able to convey it to the families. Now, that is extremely difficult, and how do you feel there would be a way for them to, I know they're trained, but not trained to do it in this manner. And I know some of the techniques that some of these first responders go through, such as the police chief. She was visibly shaken to go in front of the families. Now, she's got to be totally shaken. And to me, I feel like she should have a surrogate to help her with this.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that I just love, first responders, military, police officers, firemen, emergency medical people who go towards danger. When the danger comes, they run towards the danger rather than away, where most of us are running away from danger. It's a natural response. It's not a natural response to run towards it. And that's where you have that immense courage that you see, that with the tragedy of the police officer who was killed in the line of duty, that he was going out to save and to protect lives, and to keep as many of us Coloradans, us Boulderites, to get them back to safety. It is a process, because not very many people understand what it is to be a first responder. Sometimes you can take a lot of heat. It's not. Sometimes people don't like you so much, and in these moments when it's time of desperate need, they need to be tended to just like all of us do. They need to have the ability to tend to their wounds, to grieve, to mourn the loss, just like the police chief and our leaders, our governor, our state officials. I mean, this is one of the things that tragedies does do, is it has the opportunity to bring communities together. All communities that may have been against one another or didn't like each other, and it does have that opportunity to do that. But we need to grieve together. We need to tend to our wounds. We need to be able to share the stories in meaningful ways, because we have to give expression to the inexpressible. We have to be able to process it in a healthy environment, in a way where people get it and they understand it and they're not going to run away from it because of the horror of those stories and the shock. And learning how to be able to do that in a safe container where people are not going to judge you. I mean, it's so absolutely critical. And to be able to have the community support these kinds of methodologies to help people so that they can recover faster. Because if we don't employ this and we think this is just going to go away, it's not. These things can come back days later, months later, years later. The sooner we can start to implement some of these programs, the sooner we can get our community and Boulder healthy again.
Charlie, one last thing for you is, you've done a lot of this type of thing, the PTSD and trauma, and you yourself were a part of being involved as a person who was hurting, and you recovered, and you brought lots of doctors, you've brought lots of military personnel, some generals and just a host of different people on here to go over some of these things that a lot of these individuals incur being out there on the front line. And to see these guys going in there, they all come prepared to shoot it out with they don't know who or what. And the traumatizing effect that goes on. And I talked to you earlier, it could last days, it could last months, and sometimes even years. And the thought of that, because you have this background, have the ability to understand it, and that's why we have you on here. But let's talk about the help that you have, where they can see and look at your website and look for links and all the type of different functions that you do.
Yeah, this is Henry. This is my specialty. I work with people who experience trauma, whether veterans, first responders, police officers, firemen, domestic violence, people who have experienced horrible tragedies in their life, child abuse. Trauma is trauma. Trauma is a wounding to your soul. It bypasses your prefrontal cortex and it goes right to the soul. It hits that place inside of us that you can't medicate your way out of it. It's a process that you have to get through, and you have to honor the spirit that lives within you. And yes, it's a combination. The way I work is a combination of Western science and spirituality in essence. We're dealing with healing trauma. My website is coresoulhealing.com. That's coresoulhealing.com. And it is all geared towards our three pillars are to heal trauma. The second pillar is to deepen the mind-body connection. And the fourth pillar is to restore the soul. And we have to approach it all three ways because we're not just a thought process. We're not just thinking. Yes, we get trapped in our thoughts. Yes, we have to work on that. But trauma affects the entire system, and you've got to approach it from an integrative system. You have an emotional body, you have a physical body, you have a spiritual body, you have a thinking body, you have an energetic body, all of these things that are interconnected. And so if you've got to be able to approach it from the wholeness of the person and not just one aspect. That's what worked. And I speak from experience on that. And so it is about, learning how to be able to process the trauma in a healthy way, to reframe the story, to be able to share that story within community, to engage in ways that allow us to share these stories, before an audience. I've had amazing doctors that have come on the show that have not only reinforced that, but speak about how important it is to share our stories in community. And this applies not just to first responders and veterans, but it applies to the entire community. And I'm willing to offer, for those of you who are experiencing profound trauma, reach out to me at my website. Let me help you. It's coresoulhealing.com. I will, everybody who calls in, I will, I'm offering it for free for everybody who's tuning in right now. I will help you to get through this time. Reach out to me and just let me know what's going on, and we'll set up a time right away so we can help you and your family and your loved ones get through this very difficult time.
And if you're just joining us, you're listening to Charlie Pichello, MA, about trauma and PTSD, helping you out. Mr. Paul Chavez decided we'd bring this together. And you talked about everybody goes through trauma. Everybody swings through a lot of different things, and we understand it. And so, with you, Paul, your take on how Charlie has delivered a great message for KUHS and the community and all the first responders and the families.
Well, definitely. I think the part where you're feeling what we're feeling and in a way to give, and we appreciate you. Is there a phone number that people can reach out to you?
Sure, they can reach out to me at 310-722-6562.
Thank you so much. Any websites other than yours that people can go to maybe get some help?
Yeah, there's it's called the Second Wing Fund, or I believe that's what it's called. That's to help with any kind of people who are youth that might be experiencing suicide,
Okay.
that might be troubled. That would be, and also, I think that's the big one that I have to be able to share right now. So.
Okay. Sounds good. And of
Because-
course, the one we talked about, the Colorado Healing Fund.org, and that is for people who are in need right now, or people who just want to do something by donating, whether their services, their money, or whatever. And that's here in Colorado, man. It's a thing where, and I've got a question for you, and maybe you don't have this answer, but why in Colorado there are so many of these mass shootings? Well, what is it about Colorado? Is it the air? Is it what is it, man?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I think it's there's a confluence of a lot of different things on an energetic level, and it brings a lot of different when you're in a community where there's a lot of goodness in it, that just tends to attract some darkness too. And people, I think, are crying out for a need to connect to something deeper within themselves, and we see that as expressions of people going crazy, and it's because something fundamentally, and this is something we'll have to discuss more in depth as the tragedy gets behind us a little bit, of what is underlying this, because it seems to be a bigger problem than we understand. We're not dealing with it because it keeps coming up. And I think a lot of it has to do with this sense of not being connected to one another and not seeing each other as brothers and sisters. We may come from different walks of life. We may have different ideas, and that person across from me, he or she's got a family, they got loved ones, they got a job, they got, so we've created such a polarized civilization or society right now that we can't see the goodness in another human being. They just become an other. They just become something else, and it plays tricks with our minds, and then we're conditioned to do bad things.
Social media, we feel like we're being in touch, but yet we're not in touch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. We're not, and it's actually changing some of the way our brain functions. So we're losing the capacity with all of this technology for that basic, pure human function of being able to connect, to socialize, to be able to engage, to be able to read nonverbal cues from another person. 70% of our communication is nonverbal. So we're losing that ability with our technology because we're not around people anymore, and everything's becoming so mechanized, that we're losing our ability to feel. We're losing our ability to touch a person, to be able to connect to them on a deep level. And so you're having these explosions of senseless horror and darkness and evil, and we've got to look at it truly for what it is in order to be able to make the changes we need. We can't. Evil counts on you denying its existence. We have to be able to call those things, not at the person, but recognize we need to be able to see it for what it is, and then we can make the choices and decisions and actions that are going to help to remove that and eradicate it. But we've got to be able to connect to each other on a deeper level again, and we've got to learn how to be able to do that.
Very good.
We're going to take a break for a station identification. We are KUHS Radio TV station here in Denver, Colorado. For all the Spanish language noticias and the the Down Under network in Nicaragua, of all places.
Nicaragua, saludos.
Yes, and so all the different platforms that carry this feed, it's incredible. Like you said, technology is just separating us, but actually keeping us together. And in this time of pandemic, we see a horrifying, just a horrifying event that happened here in Boulder, Colorado. And just a touch on this, I got to go to school in Boulder for 74, 75, and 1976, and I've always loved Boulder. And never did I think
The hill.
Yeah,
The hill.
Giuseppe's,
Yeah.
Giuseppe's on the hill.
Yeah.
And so, Paul, any last things before?
Well, I just want to know, obviously, your motor is running with what you're going to come up with your show on when you're in studio. Do you have ideas what you're going to be talking about?
We actually, my next guest is, her name is Dr. Shauna Springer. She's she works with veterans and first responders with PTSD and trauma. She wrote a book called The Warrior, and we're going to be talking about how she works and how to work with veterans, and this is going to be right in alignment with
That's what I
what's
thought.
going on.
That's what I thought.
Coming up next, we got
Fox 31, The Deuce, Greg Nieto, field reporter, will be on with us. Pacello, thank you so much. I've got to come and meet you personally. That's that vibe, that connection that we're not having, right? We're working in the same place, but yet I haven't, physically shook your hand. You do a great job. You do an awesome job. Keep it up. We thought we needed to reach out to you, and why not reach out to someone in-house? You're very reputable, and continued success to you, all right?
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on today.
All righty.
coming up next. If you stay tuned, we're going to have Greg Nieto, and he'll be up here and giving his take as a first responder. And just as Charlie Pacello talked about, first responders and you know, our governors, our mayors, everybody who steps up and gives their all. I mean, you've got to have a lot to bring forward when you do this kind of thing. And like I said, surrogates should be on the side of them, and just to help them. Sometimes they can't hang through it, and you can tell some of them are extremely stressed, and you know that's going to sit with them for years to come.
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, Charlie, thank you so much, and tell them about your show again.
We have The Council. It's called The Council with me it's on 1 to 2 p.m. every other Friday on KUHS. Our mission is to help people heal, recover, and restore from PTSD, trauma, depression, suicide, dysfunctional relationships. And we're coming up on our 100th show this summer, so I'm excited to be able to reach that milestone. It's pretty cool stuff.
I'm going to have to show up for your 100th show.
We're going to have a party, Paul.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much again. Appreciate you. And we'll be listening on your show this Friday, right?
Yep. No, next Friday.
Next Friday. All right. There you go. There you go.
Right.
There you have it, Mr. Archuleta. Who do we got next?
Got Greg Nieto coming up next. He's not logged in yet, but we're going to hold you here live. We're going to keep it live. We're not going to take it down, and we'll keep you live and keep you up to the minute on all our breaking news in an exclusive. This is exclusive kind of stuff. We're not just reporting all the.
Are we still live?
We're still live, brother.
Okay.
And you know, sometimes here's what we do, Paul. We stay live, but then we chit chat behind the scenes, kind of what it feels like to actually do this kind of exclusive shows. And you know, Paul, you do your all. You hit me up late, and you know, I said, okay.
I reached out to Henry last night. I just thought about with Greg Nieto being out there, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to any kind of news, weather, whatever it may be. I actually had planned on having Greg Nieto on today, talking about the CU Buffs, but obviously more tragic things. The Buffs did lose, by the way, but next year they're actually not even putting up any kind of highlights on their website or anything, just having people to remember those who lost their lives. Once again, we lost 10 people yesterday in Colorado. It looks like the link disappeared. We're with you there. Hold on, Greg. 10 people yesterday. And you know, the funny thing, or not the funny thing, the ironic thing is that they say with this semi-automatic, um, everybody died. It could have been people injured if we would have had, less powerful guns available out there. We would have had more people, maybe alive but injured. And I mean, even that's not good. But it actually, with those assault rifles, you taking people out. I mean, totally out. So um, all this has to go back, to the White House and see what we can do about gun control. It just seems like every time that we talk about gun control after a tragic thing like this happens, looks like it disappears. People want their rights. There's certain counties in Colorado that have right to carry, open gun carry, and there's in the city and county of Denver you can't. In North Glen you can. I heard a gentleman talking about that he saw a gentleman with fatigues and a gun. Call the police. He says it's an open carry in North Glen. Now, if he's got it in his hand, that's a whole different thing. So there you have it. We're just waiting right now to get on with Greg Nieto from Fox 31 and the Deuce. He's going to give us more of an insight. Obviously, he was there yesterday and all through the night, and he'll give us some heavy insight on what this whole thing, right now, the Boulder community has been inundated with news media from all around the world. Just imagine, the only thing I hope is that this doesn't end up being another B'nai Ramsey case where they mess it up and nobody gets, done there. So we're waiting to get on with Greg Nieto right about. We're just kind of killing some time, folks. Appreciate you locking in. It's exclusive on KUHS. Mr. Patello, thank you so much, giving us an insight. And that was a cool deal where you just grab your hand and I never knew about that, but I've been doing it since then, and I'm starting to feel pretty good. I'm one of those news guys. I just love watching the news, and yesterday was something crazy because every station you turn to, it was there, and it's going to be there for quite some time. So tune into his program next Friday, and here at KUHS. Are we waiting to log in?
Well, no, we're logged in. We're waiting for Greg, actually.
Come on, Greg. Is he coming on? Log in. It's KUHS, the stream. We're bringing you an exclusive. It's not news. It's more like informing you, aside of all the craziness, of what they've already spoke about today. I think the Boulder, the Boulder Police Department gave us more information that we thought we were going to have, and we'll talk to Greg about that. I mean, giving us the names of all the victims and telling us more or less what exactly happened. This officer, I got a niece in Albuquerque by the name of Alicia, and she informed me that the officer had some ties to Albuquerque, where I'm from, and it looks like he graduated from Highland High School in 1998, so he definitely had some ties to the 505. Is he there yet?
Well, I see him trying to log in through his phone. Is he getting the? Ask him if he's logged in yet.
Okay, let's ask him. Go ahead and talk to him.
And we love these type of exclusive shows where we bring you something a little different. We bring you the who, what, when, where, and how to get over trauma, the PTSD. We bring you people from directly within our station here, as we employ and we have doctors and like Charlie Pacello with his MA, and other people who are just exclusively attuned to all this type of stuff. And it's nice to be able to reach right into our own backyard and bring them live to go over this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Paul, you were real good, and you were on top of it. You said, "Hey, let's do this. We're gonna put this together." And I said, "Whoa." And so we were able to get it together relatively later last night and put this show together. You did such a fine job, Paul. And
well, thank you. You do great yourself, Henry. But you know, he actually, because actually I came out with something. Well, I was almost being not being counseled by him, because I realized I said something that I haven't gone to a theater since the Aurora shooting, and I won't go to a theater. So maybe he's the man I need to, to talk to. You know, Greg, are you there?
Yes.
You are there, but only your phone is on. We don't see you. We love to see your beautiful face.
So it should be.
That's it. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, you got any sleep?
I'd say from about 4 to 5 this morning.
Wow.
They had me out there kind of watching, monitoring the scene overnight. So.
Greg, once again, Greg Nieto from Fox 31 in the Deuce here in Denver, Colorado. He is live with us. We're on Facebook and 5 other platforms, including Nicaragua. Their Nicaraguan news is checking us out.
Noticias out of Mexico City.
And Noticias de México. Saludos a todos ahí. Ya saben lo que pasó aquí en Colorado ayer. Ahora tenemos uno del noticiero Fox 31 y la estación Canal 2. I'm not going to try to have you speak Spanish, Greg, so don't worry about it. So, Greg, golly, man, it's what's going on with this state, man? Why do we keep getting hit with these things?
Yeah, it's incredible. Just since I've been back in Denver, this I think is my 4th mass shooting like this. So yeah, I don't know. I know folks are already going down the path of the weaponry that was used and whatnot, but I think there's got to be a deeper issue with folks. So
yeah, well, you know, I've got some major insight for you when we get off the air. I need you to follow up.
Okay.
But Greg, tell us your timeline and how things went for you since you got out there.
Well, I usually work nights, and so it was kind of right before I was supposed to be in. My managing or executive or assistant news director, you know, we get these we get scanner activity, if you will, and it always kind of is far-reaching. So unfortunately, as time goes on, more and more you hear the phrase active shooter, and thankfully most times we get there and it's not quite what it seems and all that. So even driving up there yesterday was
hey, I know you've got to be quite an animal guy.
Yeah. You were still thinking or hoping that, you know, it wouldn't be as bad as it wasn't. We'd gotten there right as they had brought the suspect out, so you were kind of hoping that was the extent of it, if you will, that there were no injuries or fatalities. So you were still holding out that hope. But I've seen too many of them when you see the people as they're walking out, and then just I've never seen so much law enforcement in my career that was there from all over the metro area. So I knew it couldn't be good.
Right, right.
I wanted to ask you, Greg, you know, and we talked about this with Charlie Pacello, and being a first responder, and you could tell it wears on you whether you know, we talked about this, and, you know, how it feels, it gets right to the soul, and you're tired, it's the end of your shift practically, and you're staying right out there and staying right with it. To be that professional, to deliver the news, give us kind of an insight of what you feel as how do you deliver this kind of story. It's got to be, your professionalism just steps right in, but you've got to really be careful how you say things.
The human side, yeah.
Yeah, give us, you know, this is an exclusive that nobody really gets to talk to, you know, a person like you and let us know what it's like to be there.
Yeah, I mean, people ask you that question all the time about how you don't let it affect you. I mean, really any story, to be honest with you, but yeah, you just try to, as I've gotten older and whatnot, I just try to do a better job of trying to be more human about the situation, and not be so, factual. Obviously you got to be correct, but I just, you see the images out there, and we were going live at, I think it was 10 on the Fox side, and we were at the reunification centers where they were taking folks to, couldn't get their cars, they could be picked up at the CU event center.
Right.
And it was, I wouldn't say a whole lot of people there, but then at the very end, we heard a lot of sobbing and hugging across the street.
And I think that's, I think that really affected you. You could tell, it came across the screen, you could tell it was definitely hitting home to you.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I never have a good answer, Henry, to that question. I guess ultimately I feel like you never go wrong with being human first, and trying to maintain a sense of professionalism. But yeah, it's not. I was telling you earlier, we had to basically stay the night out there and monitor the scene until our early morning crew got in. And so I'm looking at the front of the King Supers, and police are doing their thing, and then out of nowhere, you see like the coroner, basically putting one of the deceased in the back of a van, and it's those moments where you start to lose it a little bit.
Absolutely, definitely. Well, Greg, we know that it's got to be tough for you, and I think you've, for those of you people who've not caught it on the regular news, Greg's got a list of names for us that of the deceased. Can you get those to us, Greg, right about now? 10 of them, of course.
Yeah, it took a little bit between the press conference and whatnot to make sure, it's one thing to hear it verbalized, but we actually got a press release.
Yeah, when you hear the names, I know there's a couple of names I would never be able to get, so not to worry, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, and some of these folks, just in the 18 hours since this all happened, a couple of the last names have already resonated because they're people that we have had contact with, that were out there at the scene, waiting to see where their loved one might be. So it's
so now you can
harder.
Relate the name with the next of kin is what you're saying, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there was before I read the names, but there was a lady out there that we were talking to, Terry Liker, her mom. We were our I-team reporter was out there, and she made contact with this woman and said she was looking for a daughter. And I briefly started talking to her, and she just didn't know where she was. And you keep thinking, well, in the chaos and everything, I'm sure they'll connect. But it sounds like it was this lady's, Terry Liker's the one who passed away, and we have been chatting with her mom, and I just can't even imagine it's a horrible thing to be there when you get that news, and then on some level you have to see if they want to talk, which seems like the last thing in the world you should be asking a person. But it's just a fine line with that. But yeah, I know if folks saw the press conference today, Denny Strong 20, Nevin Stanisic 23, Ricky Olas 25, Forlona Bart Kaliak 49, Susan Fountain, which one of our reporters just sent out an email, and she's been kind of trying to reach out to the family. And, you learn so much about these folks, where they've been, what they've accomplished, what they've yet to do. And Susan Fountain 59, Terry Liker, like I mentioned, 51. Again, her mom talked to us off camera and has basically said that this lady, 51, had been with King Supers, I think, 30 years.
Right.
So an employee.
Right.
Obviously, the officer, Mr. Talley, 51. Kevin Mahoney, 61. Lynn Murray, 62. And Jody Waters, 65. So it's, yeah, you put the face, or I should say the name and the age to it, it resonates even more. That'll probably be something that they have me on when I go back up there in a couple of hours. I'm sure I'll be assigned, if you will, to one of these families to see if they want to reach out.
Right.
I immediately just kind of fall on my sword and say, I hate to even be asking you. A lot of times I'll say, is there a GoFundMe that maybe we can help the family with, with funeral costs and all of that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, it's interesting how you're able to do this type of thing, and you're a pro, and everybody admires you out in the community, and how you're able to go out there. Now, here's one thing that I'm sure you're asked a lot of times too. If you go out there and you have no clue what you're going up against, you're without any kind of support in terms of any kind of officer around you or whatever. You're just reporting the news, and you could be in the line of fire. Have you ever given that some thought?
Yeah, there was a moment yesterday where we were out there, and it was behind the, we were kind of behind the line, if you will, and the SWAT team made some sort of announcement to the, either the suspect inside, or if they were still maybe wondering if there were more in there. But yeah, it was basically, come out with your hands up, and don't mess around, and you see all the guys, SWAT teams from all over the metro area, and yeah, you gotta kind of bob and weave, if you will. So yeah, you're always keeping that keeping that in mind when you're out there.
Paul, you brought an exclusive show here with behind the scenes, talking to a reporter, giving his real feel to it, not as a reporter just saying, I'm here at the scene, etc. Greg Nieto, you're giving us a real feel, a down-home feel of how it feels to be in the area and be delivering the news. And, our hats are off to Greg Nieto, right?
Absolutely. I mean, God, you've got a record number of scenes of I assume you were at the Aurora shooting, you were at Columbine, right?
Columbine was the only one that I wasn't.
Okay.
Aurora Theater, stem cell shooting from a couple years ago down south.
Right.
And a number of officer-involved shootings where the suspect's still outstanding. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, my thing is I mean, obviously you're human. It affects you. I think. I mean, you're not physically touching these people like the frontliners, but you're there and you're seeing it. It's processing in you. Do you ever consider getting maybe a little help and being able to lose sleep? I mean, do you? Because you're human, it affects you. It affects your soul. You know what I'm saying?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I have not necessarily. I mean, I don't know. I guess people decompress in different ways, but I think probably part of it is with these bigger stories is there's no stoppage of coverage, if you will. I mean, sometimes there's a semi-big story, and maybe we cover it one day, and maybe a little bit the next day, and all of a sudden, the 24-hour cycle. I think that probably helps a little bit. But with something like this, where we're going right back to the same spot, and like I said earlier, it's like now my job's going to be, not breaking news as much as trying to learn more about these families. And I always try to tell myself, geez, if I lost a loved one, the last person in the world that I want to be talking to is some person I don't know who wants me to talk or do an interview. So
I think a lot of times people want to let people know about the person that they lost and how great that person was, and I think you're easy enough to talk to and all of this. Now let's talk about the case. It's a little premature. Were you in Colorado when the Benet Ramsey case happened, and how that was never a closed case? Really, it wasn't. And we've got to make sure, they get all their P's and Q's done, because we don't want another situation like that. I heard the district attorney say he's innocent and proven guilty. I mean, how much more guilty can you be,
Yeah.
They don't have a very good record in Boulder, with the public defender's office, So, and that Benet Ramsey, were you around for that one?
Yeah, it's ironic. I was in Colorado when it literally happened, and I've had to cover the follow-up story, if you will, a number of times. But as time goes on, it seems like it's more and more the chances of resolution seem less and less. So
right.
And Greg, I wanted to ask you about Governor Polis is from the Boulder, Colorado area, and boy, this struck home for him completely. It struck home for everybody. I know the governor was there, and he did not know in terms of how to address this in any way. Nobody does. all these different variables. Now, did you get near him and ask him any questions, or it was just a complete news conference that all the media got to see?
Yeah, so I mean, yesterday he addressed it via tweet and press release. I'm not entirely sure if he was out there this morning.
Yeah,
I know
he was.
Joe. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wasn't out there this morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, his Boulder roots run deep, as do Joe Nagoose and his family. But yeah, I mean, obviously this is a time where the state will be looking to him for some leadership. And I heard the president, as I'm sure you did, about an hour or so ago, and he saying all the right things, but geez, how many of these shootings have we had? And everybody keeps saying enough is enough, and
Yeah.
So
people are saying, and I've heard this in other stations, is if the guy had an assault rifle, we'd probably have more injuries and deaths, because the rifle that he had was an assault rifle. Are you okay, Greg? Did you fall off your chair? But yeah, I mean, I think there's too many people having these assault rifles, and I think people are going to be very shocked to find out, and that's some insight I'm going to give you, what the motive was, and that's the big one.
Well, yeah, and obviously that's what everybody's wondering, what the motive was, and I suppose if I hate to even use the term silver lining, but the fact that this suspect is still alive, hopefully they'll be able to find that out, to learn from it. I mean, I know I heard someone on the radio this morning talking about, she was I think an employee at that King Supers, and she just says, in the supermarket setting, we need better security. Like, you always see the one security guard, and God bless them, but I don't think they're armed or anything. I think they're just there to watch shoplifters. So
well, no, if you would have tried that at my King Supers over in Dartmouth, we have a Denver police guy right there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
have Denver police, but because it's so, lax and everything's cool in Boulder and even in other parts of the city, but at the Dartmouth one, we've got a police officer there, so I feel a little safe walking in that one now.
Yeah.
Now, Greg,
Yeah.
here's another question for you. You do a lot of work in reporting now. You got very minimal sleep. Do you feel like you're ready to go right back out with the minimal sleep and still do a great job? Everybody says you are because you're so professional. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's I didn't see the whole staying out there overnight coming. So I guess in that sense it's better, because you're not really taking a deep breath yet to realize, like, okay, what hour is it and whatnot. But it's almost better if I just get up and go back up there, because if I take a deep breath, it's a little harder to re-immerse yourself in a scene like that when you take a step back. And then what's really weird is, like this morning, just watching and listening to other media outlets, you start to see the perspective, if you will. Sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's bad, in the sense when you have to go back in there, because it just, not that it taints what you do, but to answer your question in a long-winded way, it's just better for me to get back in there, because if I wait too long, then I kind of lose my,
your focus.
I kind of lose it.
Yeah. Greg, I know you need to get a little rest. We're going to let you go. We thank you for taking and give us an insight of what the life of a reporter and being able to cover these mass shootings. And we hope that this
An
is
exclusive, Paul. You did an exclusive
well,
again.
this is an exclusive, but
Not too
we
many
hope
could
you
do this.
never ever have to cover one of these. I would rather have you cover something, grabbing a cat from the top of a phone pole or something like that.
Yeah, that's still a specialty.
Yeah.
And if I was just gonna, you had said, you mentioned an earlier guest. If there's someone that reaches out to you guys that is either related to these families, or someone that just wants their voice to be heard, please let me know later on today.
Absolutely.
And Greg, if you need the help of Charlie Pacello, he's in PTSD and trauma, and that's his business. That's what he does. And
that's what he does.
if you need to reach out to him, to take him along with you to talk to some of these people, he's got that
experience, knowledge, and professionalism, and he's educated, obviously. It's really interesting. But those people that are listening or watching all the different platforms, it's a sense of not being able to, when you watch these things, part of the anxiety is not being able to do anything about it. And one of it is, helping out in any way you can. And there is a website you can go to. It's called the Colorado Healing Fund.org, coloradohealingfund.org, and that's going to stay right in Boulder to those people that have been affected by this senseless act, and we got to move forward and kind of talk about the healing now, and laying these 10 people to rest. I mean, it's so sad.
Very sad. Yes, I appreciate your time, guys. Always a pleasure and an honor to be on the show.
Hey, thank you. Get some rest, man, and we'll be in touch on a better mode. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank
See you,
you.
Henry.
See you later. We're still on live with
Wow.
Danita. And
Wow.
this has been absolutely incredible, Paul. What you've done and what you brought an exclusive to talk about trauma, PTSD, talk about straight to a reporter, first line on, from Channel 31 in the Deuce, Mr. Greg Neto. He gave you the human side of having to be in there. And we talked about all the people who passed away, but we didn't get really into it like the other networks. We did it in an exclusive way where we bring you the feeling of what a reporter has to go through to be out there amongst that.
Absolutely. Once again, the website to go to if you want to help. I mean, you can get engulfed and just enthralled in something like this. And this morning, literally, I was like clicking every freaking network because they were doing the press release. And I caught myself and like, what am I doing? But, because we're Coloradoans, we feel for those people. It could happen in our King Supers. And, like I told Pacello, I can't go into a theater anymore. I can't. And I was getting counseling from him.
Isn't Charlie great? I mean,
he's good.
Look at the
He's
way
definitely
he does
good.
it. Yeah. And so, if you need help with anything, you can get hold of Charlie Pacello. He's up on our website, and you can just look him up. And
He is part of the KUHS team, and we're happy to have him. And once again, thanks to Greg Neto. You could tell he was a little tired.
And you could tell he was a little upset.
Well, he
because
was the human side did come out in him, and I mean, weren't trying to do it, but it did affect him, and obviously, man, he's right there on the line. He's seeing all of this. We want to thank you all for watching. Normally, we like to entertain. This is my happy place, and well, I just felt the need that we needed to get a different side of. Everybody's reporting on the facts and all that, but we had to kind of go in the back door, so to speak. Thank you, Henry, for putting this together. We'll start up some music now. We've got about another hour to go.
Paul, just to thank you, like I tell Paul, damn, you're professional, because he did a preview, a prenup to this great show. It's an exclusive show brought to you by KUHS Radio TV Denver. And I was getting all these different requests late last night too, and in this morning, if they can carry the stream, all I do is send them the link. And they carry it all the way down underneath to Mexico and to other states, other cities, other countries.
Right.
And so, even though it doesn't seem like we have all those platforms, but I try to share them out there. They're everywhere.
Yes.
And the audience has grown very large. And if you can't see us and you're not watching us, you can actually hear us. And a lot of people just tune in and listen to what you have to say, Paul.
That's right.
And great show.
Thank you.
I really applaud you for putting such I mean, it was quick last night, but we got it down.
Absolutely, and it's time to come together as a community, and we just got to do something. And I just feel for those families, and God bless them all.
You call it the tragedy nightmare in Boulder. It's like, it struck everybody. It hit everybody. It's like, it just takes you down. We're suffering the pandemic. Everybody's starting to get a little happy. We're getting inoculated. We're getting our vaccines.
And there were people that were actually going to get their vaccines, because that's one of the few places. It's right there in Boulder. So, but we thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate it. We got some music coming your way, so please tune in to KUHS.Denver.com, and we are the stream. Have a good day, a good evening, and keep those families in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you all.
See y'all later. up there, stop and stop.